What is one thing you can tell a white person that'll make them glitch?
All right, it's history time, people. The history that you've been taught with respect to anti-communism has nothing to do with the Soviet Union, has nothing to do with China. You know, the Red Scare and those things themselves are directly tied to the progress of the civil rights movement. And we're talking about the progress that's being made in the 1920s, the progress that's being made in the 1930s, the connections that the Communist Party of the United States of America had with the anti-lynching campaigns, as well as supporting legal defense for groups like the Scottsboro Boys in Scottsboro, Alabama, who were falsely accused of SA, as well as ensuring a push for labor rights.
This is a really good example of how bad our education system is in this country and how much American students are propagandized, because very few people realize how hard the socialists and the communists were advocating for civil rights in the early and mid 20th century. And even fewer people realize what the FBI and the intelligence community at large did to undermine those efforts to build collective power in this country.
So this idea of, you know, communism is when I have no phone or when no iPhone or anything like that. All the stuff that you're seeing started as a response to Black, Hispanic, Indigenous, Asian, and Jewish people coming together.
The vast majority of Americans' understanding of communism stems from the Cold War, and it's tainted with pro-capitalist theory. The average American thinks communism leads to poverty, leads to genocide, leads to mass death, and that's just not true. And those same people don't realize just how hard these people were fighting for an intersectional mass movement. But ultimately, when people come together, when they transcend ideological, when they transcend racial, and when they transcend class lines to build collective power, that's when capitalist interests are most threatened.
It was all catered to ensuring that those groups do not get together based on class or race. And anti-communism was a way to ensure that this was not going to take place, because again, the CPUSA was making inroads, and they were linking some people up and making some very strong coalitions, which is also why in the 1960s the FBI pushed Cointelpro, because they did not want any of the civil rights groups and civil rights leaders taking more of a leftist turn or more of a communist turn, because it would mean that you would have class and racial solidarity. And once you have that, game over.
He mentions Cointelpro, and that was where the FBI not only surveilled groups like the socialists, the communists, and civil rights leaders, they actively infiltrated those groups and sought to disrupt and bring their progress to a screeching halt. They would go in and try to split hairs over different terminology and cause infighting in these groups to make those people focused more on trivial internal affairs than outward power. And then on top of that, they tried to cover up their tracks, and when they were forced to release some documents in the 70s, they were heavily redacted. So we don't even know the full extent of what they were doing, and there have been reports in recent years that they're doing the same thing again. So why don't people get this? Why don't people realize this? Again, that goes back to the education system. And this is especially bad in red states, where they've explicitly forbidden teachers from talking about any positive upsides of socialism or communism around the world. It's never framed as workers owning the means of production or getting paid fairly for their wages. It's always starvation, genocide, death. Look at our capitalist hellscape. Tell me what you see. Does that not include mass starvation, death, poverty? When you have a system where billionaires can siphon wealth from working people, that's the result you're going to get. Not one where workers control the means of production. And they're going one step further, and this is where we really need to be alarmed. They've conflated the civil rights movement and Black history in this country with critical race theory, which is a legal theory people learn in law schools and graduate schools. And they've used that and the scaremongering around it to prevent and suppress any teaching of the civil rights movement in schools around the country. And once we forget that, we're only doomed to repeat the same mistakes.